All right, let's dive into this one. The Axel Files. The Blue Diamond Affair by Jerry Bader.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you are a fan of this genre.
Big fan.
So I think you're going to like this.
Yeah.
So Bader, is prolific in the noir genre, detective, spy, crime novels.
Yeah.
He's also written across other categories, like he's written some biographies and some children's books,
Right.
which is interesting. But for this one, The Blue Diamond Affair kicks off with a scene that kind of grabs you right away.
It does.
So we're in 1989, Riyadh,
Okay.
and we meet this character, Jira Bunma. He is a domestic worker for a Saudi prince.
Okay.
And he's presented with a very tempting opportunity, right? A safe full of jewels.
Safe full of jewels.
Left unlocked.
Oh, boy.
What would you do?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't just grab a handful of jewels. He cleans out the safe.
He cleans it out.
The whole thing. An estimated 90 kilos of precious stones.
90 kilos. That's incredible. So it's not just the quantity
Right.
that makes this heist stand out. The centerpiece of this haul is this legendary Saudi blue. Have you ever heard of this?
I have.
It's this rare blue diamond the size of a hard-boiled egg.
Wow.
Can you just picture it?
Yeah.
And that image, it stays with you. I mean, throughout the book.
Right.
It becomes this symbol of greed, ambition,
Oh, yeah.
the lengths that people will go to for power and wealth.
Right. I mean, how could it not?
And so fast forward to present-day Toronto.
Okay.
We're introduced to Axel Webb. He's our protagonist. He's a detective.
Okay.
He's trying to enjoy some downtime with his girlfriend Zelda.
Uh-huh.
But, that peaceful scene's not going to last very long.
Not in this kind of book, no.
Enter Ari Katz. He is an Israeli chief inspector
Mhm.
who needs Axel's help
Okay.
with recovering a stolen blue diamond.
So this is where it all ties together.
So, right, suddenly that opening scene in Riyadh
Yeah.
takes on a whole new meaning.
Absolutely.
So right off the bat, what Bader does, he sets up this dual timeline, right?
Mhm.
Weaving together the past and the present, the heist and the investigation. It keeps you hooked. I mean, you're trying to figure out how these two seemingly separate events
Yeah.
are going to collide.
Of course.
So as the story unfolds, we discover that this case isn't just about recovering a stolen gem.
No.
The Saudi blue is tangled up in this web of international intrigue. It's potentially affecting Saudi-Israeli relations, and then even the balance of power in the Middle East.
Wow.
And so Bader even throws in these real-world elements like the Abraham Accords. Have you heard of those?
I have, yeah.
And those are, agreements aimed at normalizing relations
Yeah.
between Israel and some Arab countries.
So he brings in some real world politics.
So it adds this layer of complexity. And I mean, the stakes are really, really high.
Yeah.
So things get even more interesting when we factor in Axel's partners. Okay.
Yeah.
Shutoko and Hibiki Sato, they're not your typical business associates.
Oh, really?
They're Yakuza.
Wow.
So members of Japanese organized crime.
Okay.
So it throws you into this morally ambiguous world, right?
Yeah.
Where Axel has to make some tough choices. I mean, would you work with someone knowing their background?
That's a tough one. I don't know.
That's the dilemma that Axel faces throughout the book. He's a good guy at heart, but he's willing to bend the rules,
Okay.
even partner with criminals, to achieve his goals.
It's the ends justify the means.
It makes you question how far would you go
Yeah.
to achieve justice.
I mean, it depends on what justice means to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So Bader takes us to the heart of Bangkok,
Okay.
specifically the Charoen Krung district.
Yeah.
So this is where Chira, after the heist, fences the stolen jewels.
Uh,
And Bader describes this area as this vibrant, chaotic mix of these gleaming pagodas and decaying streets. It's almost mirroring the beauty and the darkness of the diamond itself. What did you think of his use of setting?
I think the setting itself, it almost becomes another character in the story.
Okay.
It's just this backdrop of secrets and corruption and hidden agendas.
So years pass after the heist, and the whole thing starts to unravel when a photo surfaces
Okay.
of a Thai official's wife
Mm-hmm.
sporting a stolen necklace.
Oh, wow.
It turns out most of the jewels that were returned to the Saudis were fakes.
Really?
Can you believe the audacity?
I mean, it's incredible.
So,
So you got away with it.
well, they thought they did.
Okay.
So it speaks to the level of corruption that's woven into this story. We see how power and greed can lead to these elaborate schemes,
Mhm.
and innocent people often get caught in the crossfire.
Of course.
And it's not just a matter of stolen jewels anymore. 4 Saudi agents investigating the case end up dead in Bangkok, along with a Saudi businessman who vanished.
Wow.
And so the plot thickens even further with possible Hezbollah or even Thai police involvement. So it becomes this tangled web of conspiracies.
Yeah.
As a reader, you're constantly trying to figure out who to trust,
Yeah.
who's pulling the strings,
Yeah.
and what their true motivations are.
Right. Right.
So Bader keeps throwing in these new layers.
Yeah.
He introduces us to the Boonmies,
Okay.
to this seemingly charming couple who own this lavish restaurant called the Blue Sapphire Experience.
Okay.
And everything is decked out in gold and blue, almost like a gaudy shrine to the stolen diamond.
Wow.
The husband, Talay, is a former Thai policeman. As you might have guessed, he's connected to the cover-up.
Right.
So the restaurant itself becomes a symbol of the ill-gotten gains from the heist.
It's very symbolic.
It's this constant reminder of the deception and the lives that have been affected by this crime.
Right.
And just when Axel and Ari think they're getting somewhere,
Yeah.
this new player enters the scene, Kamal Jabari. He's a Saudi agent
Okay.
connected to the secret police. And he's clearly on his own mission.
Mm.
And he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. So you get this feeling that he's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
So Jabari's, pursuit of the truth, or perhaps his own brand of justice, leads him to confront this man named Thong Dai,
Okay.
demanding information about the stolen jewels.
Mm-hmm.
He learns about this mysterious figure known as the Yam.
Interesting.
And this Yam happens to be the security guard at Thong Dai's shop.
Mm.
And I loved how Bader uses this detail, this name, to kind of build suspense.
Right. What kind of person is this guy?
Exactly. Is he, a powerful figure? Is he a pawn in someone else's game?
Yeah.
It's these little details that make the story so engaging.
Absolutely.
And as you might expect, in this world, the doorman doesn't last long. He's found dead. He's professionally executed. All signs point to Jabari,
Okay.
eliminating loose ends, seeking his own form of revenge.
Right.
So it reinforces this idea that in this world, violence is a language that everyone understands.
Yeah.
And Jabari's not afraid to use it to achieve his goals.
Even if it means crossing lines that most people wouldn't.
So Axel and Ari, with this growing sense of urgency, shift their focus
Okay.
to this seemingly unlikely character, Mongol Makak.
Mm-hmm.
He's this Muay Thai instructor
Okay.
with powerful connections in Thailand.
Uh,
But his gym is a bit unusual.
okay.
It's decorated with piranhas.
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 Okay.
And in one of the piranha tanks, there's this suspicious-looking blue plastic toy rock.
What?
And so what did you make of that?
Well, it's a strange juxtaposition. The brutal world of Muay Thai with these deadly fish,
Right.
and then the seemingly innocent blue rock.
So it creates this sense of unease.
Yeah.
Like something's not quite right.
Something's off.
And you're absolutely right to feel that way.
Okay.
As it turns out, the Saudi blue, it's hidden in plain sight, right there in the piranha tank.
Wow. What a hiding spot.
The audacity, it's like Mokok's daring anyone to try and take it from it.
Right. It's brilliant, actually.
So it's a brilliant twist. And it speaks to Makak's character. He's cunning.
Mm-hmm.
He's resourceful.
Yeah.
And clearly not someone to be underestimated.
Definitely not.
Axel, Ari, and Zelda, who has now joined the chase,
Right.
realize they're going to have to take matters into their own hands. They're going to have to steal the diamond from Makak. So what were your thoughts when you got to this part of the story?
Well, things are about to get really dangerous at this point. You could feel the tension building.
Yeah.
And this heist, you just know, is going to have major consequences.
And it does. The break-in scene is one of the most suspenseful parts of the book.
Okay.
So picture this. It's late at night. Axel, Ari, decked out in balaclavas.
Okay.
Ari's picking the locks with his usual finesse.
Mm.
Shotoko's unexpectedly held up in the bathroom, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then there's this tense encounter with Makak's bodyguards. It's like something straight out of a heist movie.
Wow.
And then there's the added absurdity
Mhm.
of the piranha rescue mission.
The what?
They're literally trying to carefully remove the piranhas from the tank.
To not raise suspicion.
Right. To avoid raising suspicion while they're in the middle of stealing a priceless diamond. It's those little details that make Bader's writing so engaging.
Absolutely.
So it's this blend of action, suspense, and humor.
Yeah.
It keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Of course.
So they manage to pull off the heist.
Okay.
Jabari gets the diamond.
Mm-hmm.
And in exchange, he promises to ensure that the Saudis commit to the Abraham Accords. So it's a reminder that this seemingly small heist has these ripple effects.
Right.
It extends far beyond just, recovering a stolen gem.
It's like this interplay between personal motivation and political maneuvering.
It really is.
This diamond becomes a bargaining chip
Right.
on the world stage. I mean, the fate of nations is hanging in the balance.
But the story doesn't end there. Jabari, ever the pragmatist, decides to tie up loose ends.
Okay.
He eliminates the remaining corrupt Thai policemen involved in the original murders, covering his tracks and achieving his own twisted sense of justice.
So he takes care of everything.
He does. So it leaves you with a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Is Jabari a hero or a villain?
Yeah.
Is he a force for good or simply a ruthless operator?
Right.
You know, Bader doesn't provide any easy answers, and I think that's part of what makes this book so compelling.
It's a classic noir ending. Justice is served,
Uh-huh.
but at a cost. And you're left wondering, did the ends justify the means?
It's a good question.
And that's one of the things I appreciate about Bader's writing.
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from moral ambiguity. His characters are complex.
Okay.
They're flawed.
Right.
They're often operating in shades of gray. It
Mhm.
makes them feel more real, more human.
Sure.
And it forces you to confront your own beliefs about right and wrong.
What did you think about Axel's character arc?
Well, I think it's one of the most fascinating aspects of the book. He starts off, he seems like a straightforward detective, but then as the story unfolds, he's drawn deeper and deeper into this web of deceit and violence.
Right.
And he has to compromise,
Yeah.
work with people he wouldn't normally associate with.
Mm.
And you see him struggling with those choices, questioning his methods.
Right.
And ultimately, you're left wondering, has he crossed the line?
Yeah. You know, there's that saying, if you stare into the abyss long enough, the abyss stares back at you.
Right.
And I think in a lot of ways, that's what happens to Axel.
Yeah.
He's constantly facing down these dark forces,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes a toll on him, physically and emotionally.
Sure.
And that transformation is what makes him such a compelling protagonist.
Of course.
I mean, he's not a superhero.
Right.
He's flawed. He's vulnerable.
He's human.
He's a human being
Yeah.
trying to do the right thing in a world that's often unforgiving.
Yeah. And I think that resonates with people because
I think so, too.
we can all relate to that feeling of being caught between a rock and a hard place.
Now, we can't talk about the Blue Diamond Affair without mentioning the supporting characters.
Oh, yeah.
Each one, even those with smaller roles, adds another dimension to the story.
Okay.
So take Zelda, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
She's not just there as a love interest.
Right.
She becomes an active participant in the investigation.
Right.
She shows resourcefulness,
Mm-hmm.
courage, even in the face of danger.
Mm.
Did you find her to be a strong female character?
Absolutely. I mean, she's smart, she's capable,
Yeah.
and she definitely holds her own in this world that's dominated by men.
Yeah.
And she challenges Axel,
Right.
pushes him to think differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that dynamic between them adds another layer of depth to the story.
And then there's Shotoko, the Yakuza enforcer,
Oh, yeah.
this intimidating figure,
Okay.
fiercely loyal to Axel, but with this surprising sense of humor
Okay.
and even a bit of a soft spot for Zelda.
Okay.
So he brings this unexpected element of comic relief to the story.
Right.
And
It's a nice contrast.
I really enjoyed his scenes.
Yeah, he's a good character.
He's a great example of how Bader can take a character who, on the surface, seems like a stereotypical tough guy.
Right.
But he gives him depth and nuance.
Yeah.
You see that he's not just a brute. He's a complex individual
Mm-hmm.
with his own code of honor and loyalty.
Of course.
And what about Tele Bunmi,
Oh, yeah.
the owner of the Blue Sapphire Experience? He's suave, he's sophisticated,
Mm-hmm.
but with this dark secret lurking beneath that charming facade.
Yeah.
He embodies the corruption that seems to permeate every level of society in this story.
He's like the perfect antagonist.
He is.
You can't help but be drawn to his charisma, but at the same time, you're
Mhm.
reminded of that darkness that lies beneath the surface.
He represents that seductive allure of wealth and power, and how easily it can corrupt even the most seemingly well-intentioned individuals.
Absolutely.
Bader also does a brilliant job with Kamal Jabari, the Saudi agent.
Mm-hmm.
He's this enigma, a man of contradictions.
Okay.
He's ruthless.
Mm-hmm.
He's violent.
Yeah.
But also driven by this deep sense of duty
Right.
and a desire to see justice served, even if it means operating outside the law. It's almost like he's this dark reflection of Axel,
I see.
operating on the other side of the moral spectrum.
He's a character you love to hate,
Mm-hmm.
but he gets things done.
He does.
Even if his methods are questionable. And his presence in the story, it makes us confront,
Yeah.
those uncomfortable questions about the nature of justice.
Right.
What are we willing to do to achieve it?
So that's what makes The Blue Diamond Affair such a thought-provoking read.
Mhm.
It's not just a thriller. It's a story that delves into these complexities of human nature.
Right?
the choices we make, the consequences that follow. It challenges us to consider different perspectives, to question our own assumptions, and to grapple with those moral gray areas
Yeah.
where the lines between right and wrong just become blurred.
And that's why, Bader's work resonates with so many people.
I agree.
Because he doesn't shy away from those questions.
Oh.
The characters, they're flawed, they're vulnerable,
Mhm.
they make mistakes, and they compromise their values to survive. And it creates this world that feels real and raw and compelling.
I agree. Now, one of the things that really struck me about this book was Bader's use of language.
Okay.
He's a master of description, and he creates this vivid imagery
Yeah,
that just transports you right into the heart of the story.
absolutely. I mean, whether he's describing the streets of Bangkok or the interior of the restaurant or even a Muay Thai fight, you feel like you're right there in the middle of it.
Yeah.
His writing, it's visceral. It's evocative.
Yeah.
It really pulls you in.
There's this one passage where he describes the Karon Krung district in Bangkok.
Okay. That's really evocative.
And he does that throughout the book.
Yeah.
He uses language to create atmosphere, to build tension, to reveal character. He's a master of his craft.
He is.
Okay, so we talked about the characters, the setting, the writing style.
Yeah.
But what about the plot?
Okay.
What did you think about the way Bader structured the story?
Well, it's very well paced. I mean, he keeps you guessing.
Yeah.
There's twists and turns. You never see them coming.
Right.
The dual timeline with the flashbacks to the original heist adds another layer of intrigue. And he weaves it all together seamlessly. You're always trying to figure out how the past is connected to the present, who the real players are.
Right.
This cat and mouse game.
And he does a great job of building suspense.
He does.
I mean, there's this underlying sense of danger throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that things are going to come to a head, but you don't know how or when.
Exactly.
And that keeps you turning the pages.
Of course.
You want to know what's going to happen next. And when the climax arrives,
Right.
it is explosive.
Oh, wow.
The heist scene, the confrontation with McCock, the final resolution with Jabari,
Mm-hmm.
it's all just so expertly executed. I mean, you're on the edge of your seat,
Oh.
holding your breath,
Yeah.
waiting to see how it all plays out.
Sounds intense.
And even after the main conflict is resolved, Bader leaves you with some lingering questions.
Okay.
What will happen now that the Saudi blue has been recovered?
Right.
Will it bring peace to the Middle East, or will it spark new conflicts?
That's a good question.
And what about Axel? I mean, what's next for him? Has he gone too far down the rabbit hole
Yeah.
to ever come back?
That's what makes him such a good writer.
Right,
He doesn't tie everything up neatly.
right.
You're left with things to think about and to ponder.
And maybe to argue about.
And maybe to argue about with your friend.
Right. And so that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
We're diving deep into these stories,
Right.
exploring the layers and having those conversations
Yeah.
that, make us think differently about the world around us.
It's always good to look at things from a different perspective.
So as we move into the final part
Yeah.
of our deep dive into
Yeah.
the Blue Diamond affair,
Mhm.
let's
Okay.
shift gears a little bit
Right.
and consider these broader themes
Okay.
that Bader explores in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So what stood out to you?
Well, one of the most prominent themes, I think we've already touched upon this, is this idea of moral ambiguity.
Right.
Bader doesn't present us with these clear-cut heroes and villains. His characters are complex. They're flawed. Right. They make choices that aren't always easy to categorize as right or wrong. Right. And they face consequences that are often unpredictable and far-reaching. It's like the real world.
Right.
Things are very rarely black and white.
So that ties into another major theme,
Okay.
the corrupting influence of power.
Oh, yeah.
We see this throughout the book,
Mm-hmm.
from the Saudi prince who's willing to cover up a massive theft to protect his reputation,
Right.
to the Thai officials
Yeah.
who are complicit in the scheme,
Right.
to the Yakuza who operate with their own set of rules.
Mm-hmm.
So power in this story is this double-edged sword.
It is.
It can be used for good
Yeah.
or for evil,
Right. Right.
and it often comes at a price.
Of course.
And then there's this theme of loyalty versus betrayal.
Okay.
And we see this play out in the relationships.
Right.
Axel and his Yakuza partners, Ari and his superiors in the Israeli government,
Mm.
even Jabari and the Saudi royal family.
So who can you trust
Right.
when everyone has an agenda?
Right. Who's willing to sacrifice everything for those they care about?
Mm-hmm.
And who's willing to betray those closest to them for personal gain?
That's a good question.
And it's not just about individual betrayals. It's about this betrayal of trust on a larger scale.
Right. It makes you wonder about accountability,
It does.
the responsibility of those in power.
Right.
Who's looking out for the ordinary people who get caught in the middle of all this?
Right.
Who's going to speak truth to power even when it's dangerous?
So that leads us to another theme that runs through the book.
Okay.
The search for justice.
Mm-hmm.
Axel is driven by this desire to find the truth
Right.
and bring the perpetrators to justice. Ari is determined to recover that stolen diamond, to protect Israel's interests.
Yeah.
Jabari, in his own way, is seeking to right wrongs,
Hmm.
punish those who have betrayed their trust.
Hmm.
But what does justice truly mean in this world where the lines are so blurred?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
Is it retribution, punishment, or is it something more?
Right.
You know, something that takes into account human motivation and the unintended consequences of actions.
So I think that's one of the most compelling things about the Blue Diamond Affair. It's not just an adventure story. It's a story that makes us think about the world we live in,
Right.
the choices we make, the impact we have on each other. It's a story that stays with you
It sounds like it.
long after you finish reading it.
And that's what makes Jerry Bader such a remarkable writer. He doesn't just entertain us.
Right.
He challenges us.
Yeah.
He provokes us.
Mhm.
And he leaves us wanting more.
It's interesting, isn't it,
Hmm.
how a story about a stolen diamond can take us on this journey
It is.
through these complex themes of morality, power, and justice.
It speaks to the power of storytelling, really. You know, a good author can use something as simple as a stolen diamond
Right.
and explore these universal truths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why books like The Blue Diamond Affair, they resonate with us. They hold up this mirror to our own lives,
Yeah.
our own choices,
Yeah.
our own struggles.
Now, I know you sent in several sources for this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
And while we've mainly been focusing on the Blue Diamond Affair itself,
Yeah.
I think it's worth taking a moment to consider some of Bader's other work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm always curious
Yeah.
how authors evolve, over time.
Yeah.
How their style changes,
Mm.
how they approach different genres,
Right.
different themes.
Yeah. So in the case of Jerry Bader, it seems like he's always been drawn to these stories that explore the darker side of human nature.
Right.
You mentioned he's written other books in the Axel Files series.
Yes, yeah.
Each one has its own set of twists and turns.
Yeah. Florence's Floozy, The Cherrywood Box, The History of Cardenio, The Disappeared Hanshir Mazamune, The Puckle Robbery, Finding Lunia, The Fiddler's Strad, and The Man with 21 Faces.
Yeah, it's quite a list. And what's interesting is that while he's known for his noir thrillers,
Right.
he also ventures into other genres.
He does.
He's written some biographies.
Yeah.
And even some children's books.
I mean, it makes you wonder, what is it that compels him to write across such a diverse range?
It's a good question. Maybe it's that insatiable curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
that drives all great storytellers, that desire to explore the human experience, to understand what makes us tick,
Right.
and to share those insights through these narratives.
Maybe it's that drive to uncover hidden truths,
Yeah.
shed light on the dark corners of the world, to
Mm.
challenge our perceptions of reality.
It could be.
I don't know.
Whatever the motivation, it's clear that Bader is a gifted writer.
He is.
I mean, he has a knack for crafting these stories that just stay with you.
They do. So as we wrap up our deep dive
Yeah.
into the Blue Diamond Affair
Mhm.
and the world of Jerry Bader,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with this. What resonated with you the most? What questions lingered in your mind?
Well, maybe it was the moral dilemmas that Axel faced,
Right.
or the shadowy world of international intrigue,
Yeah.
or even just those captivating descriptions of Bangkok.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was the characters themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Their flaws, their motivations, their journeys. I mean, did you find yourself sympathizing with them, even when their actions were questionable?
I think that's the beauty of a good book. It sparks these conversations.
Yeah.
It challenges our perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And it leaves us with a sense of wonder
Right.
and a desire to learn more.
And so if you're looking for a thought-provoking thriller
Yeah.
that will keep you on the edge of your seat,
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend The Blue Diamond Affair.
It sounds like it.
And if you're already a fan of Jerry Bader's work, be sure to check out his other books.
Right. You might find your next literary obsession.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Until next time, happy reading.